Welcome back to UGC Net English class. In the previous class, we discussed the biography of the famous Victorian English novelist Charles Dickens. Today we are with one of Shakespeare's plays, a problem play titled All's Well That Ends Well. All's Well That Ends Well was published in Shakespeare's first folio that appeared in 1623. The basic story is about Helena and Bertram's love. So let's analyze the basic plot, the very capsule summary, and after this we will, explain it in detail. So the basic story is Helena heals the King of France. So the King of France was, suffering from fistula, and the king is cured by Helena. And the king grants her permission to marry Bertram, the man she loves. She was in love with the man Bertram. So king gives her the, right to choose a man of her liking. And Bertram and Helena marry, but Bertram puts before her some conditions. Otherwise, he says he won't accept her as a wife. So she is to perform some tasks so that he will give her the right of his wife. So Bertram rejects her and leaves a list of tasks that she must do to have him acknowledge the marriage. So in order to acknowledge the marriage, he wants her to perform some tasks. So she secretly follows him to Italy and completes all the tasks, and Bertram accepts her as his wife. So Bertram finally, accepts her because she completes all the tasks successfully. And the play was, composed in between 1598, or we can say between 1608. So 1598 to 1608. In between these dates, Shakespeare composed this play. And it first appeared, it was first published in the first folio in 1623. And in the first folio, it was listed as a comedy. We know that first folio listed only 3 types of plays: comedies, histories, and a tragedy. So this play, All's Well That Ends Well, was listed under the title comedy. But now we consider the play as coming under the category of problem plays. So one of Shakespeare's problem plays, we can say, along with a Hamlet, Troilus and Cressida, and Measure for Measure. So it is considered one of Shakespeare's problem plays. Especially the word problem play was first coined by Frederick S. Boss. In 1896, Frederick S. Boss coined the term problem play. It is important, you should remember. So grouping this play, All's Well That Ends Well, he grouped with the other problem plays that he could really identify. That means Hamlet, Troilus and Cressida, and Measure for Measure. So these 4 plays are basically called problem plays: Hamlet, Troilus and Cressida, Measure for Measure, and All's Well That Ends Well. But some critics also include The Winter's Tale as problem play. So we can say 5 or 4 problem plays written by Shakespeare. So first of all, All's Well That Ends Well, Measure for Measure, Troilus and Cressida, Hamlet, and also The Winter's Tale. So remember, Frederick S. Boss, F.S. Boss, coined the term problem play. The term problem play is applied to plays that treat some social or moral problem, and the end of these plays compel the readers to think intelligently on the issue. So the term problem play is applied to plays that treat some social or moral problem. And when we analyze the title is taken from lines, spoken by the heroine Helena. So the line is based on lines spoken by Helena to point out that the success or failure of an event or a course of action depends entirely on how it ends. That means all things are not as they seem. All is well when it ends well. Now the work really mixes fairy tale logic, gender role reversals, and a cynical realism. The play has mixture of all these. Fairy tale logic it uses, gender role reversal techniques it uses, and also cynical realism. And the play was not performed in Shakespeare's time. So no records of the early performances of the play All's Well That Ends Well have been found in Shakespeare's time. When we analyze the themes of the work, we can see themes like virginity, sex and marriage. A human being should be judged on his or her inequalities, social classes. Women have the intelligence and know how to compete with men. Character and judgment. All things are not as they seem. All's well when it ends well. Friendship, lies, deceit, and trickery, etc. So once more, the themes include virginity, sex and marriage. A human being should be judged on his or her inequalities, social classes. Women have the intelligence and know how to compete with men. Character and judgment. All things are not as they seem. All is well when it ends well. Friendship, lies, deceit, and trickery, etc. The plot elements drawn from romance and the ribald tale. So we can see the plot for the play was drawn from romance tales and also ribald tale. Ribald tales means referring to sexual matters, indecent things, etc. And the source of the work, basic story is taken from a story based on the tale of Giletta di Narbona. Giletta di Narbona of Boccaccia's work, the Decameron. So, Boccaccia's work, in the work Decameron, there is a story about Giletta di Narbona. So, she is the inspiration for Helena. So, the character Giletta di Narbona from Boccaccia's The Decameron. And also another work also inspired Shakespeare to write All's Well That Ends Well. That work is The Palace of Pleasure, written by William Painter. William Painter's work, The Palace of Pleasure. So these are the sources. Boccaccia's The Decameron, William Painter's The Palace of Pleasure. Now let's analyze the setting of the play. The setting is important to remember because it actually doesn't happen in English countries or in London or somewhere. It happens actually in another country, or we can say another countries. Basically in France and Italy. So let's see. The action begins in Roussillon, a region in France. Then it moves to other locales, including Paris. Paris is a place in France. And then Florence. Florence is in Italy. and then it moves to Marseille. Marseille is a place in France. So basically, France and Italy. Remember the places: Roussillon, which is in France; Paris, which is in France; then Italy, there is Italy's Florence; then in Marseille, Marseille is in France. Now the protagonist or heroine is Helena, we know. And the hero is Bertha. And the antagonist, we can say, not a person we can identify as an antagonist. We can, say a kind of class system that it really comes here as an antagonist, an antagonist, or we can say a villain. So the class system that it discriminates against the persons of low birth, that is the villain here. Now the work begins. The beginning line of the work is very, very important to remember. So the play begins with the lines, one line spoken by the countess. The countess means mother of Bertha. So she speaks the line. So the line is, "In delivering my son from me, I bury a sickened husband." So this line is spoken by Bertham's mother, the countess. And the play ends with the words of the King of France. So remember, all's well there ends well ends with the words of the King of France. So he says, "The king is a beggar. Now the play is done. All is well ended. If this suit be won, there you express content, which we will pay with a strife to please you, day exceeding day. Ours be your patience then, and yours our pass. Your gentle hands lent us, and take our hearts." So once more, the King of France ends the play with the lines, "The king is a beggar. Now the play is done. All is well ended. If this suit be won, that you express content, which we will pay the strive to please you, day exceeding day. Ours be your patience then, and yours our paths. Our gentle hands lend us, and take our hearts." George Bernard Shaw was really impressed with the work. Playwright George Bernard Shaw was happy about the play. So he greatly admired Helena's character, comparing Helena's character with the new woman figure such as Nora in Henry Gibson's work, A Doll's House. So Bernard Shaw compares Helena's character to the character of Nora, who is the heroine of Henry Gibson's play, A Doll's House. And Bernard Shaw was also happy, about the mother character of Bertha. So Bertham's mother, that means Countess of Roussillon, Countess of Roussillon, mother of Bertham. So Bernard Shaw says that her role was the most beautiful old woman's part ever written, about Bertham's mother, the Countess of Roussillon. And when we try to, spell out the ultimate message of the play, we can see the play's ultimate message is, love all, trust a few, do wrong to none. This is the ultimate message. You should love everyone, but you should trust a few, and you should do wrong to none. Now let's analyze each act. Act first, we see the play is set in France, in the French province of Roussillon. The widow, the countess, bids farewell to her son, Bertham. So Bertram's mother gives a farewell to Bertram. Bertram is going somewhere. So we understand that Bertram is going to the court of the French king with his friend Parulis and another lord Laugh. So with the other two people, that means with the lord Laugh and with Bertram's friend Parulis, he is going to meet the French king. And we know that Helena lives in Bertram's house because Helena's father was a physician, was a we can say doctor-like character, a physician who was the countess' physician. That means Bertram's mother's physician. But now he is no more. Helena's father, the physician, is no more. So Helena lives in the house of Bertram. That means the countess' house, the widowed countess' house. So Bertram leaves giving no attentions of Helena, the orphan daughter of the countess' celebrated physician. Helena has been brought up in his mother's household and has fallen in love with Bertram. So we understand that Helena was living in Bertram's house after her father's death. Her father was the countess' physician. So while growing up, Helena falls in love with Bertram, but Bertram never returns her love. So Bertram, without showing any interest towards Helena, he leaves to the French king, leaves to meet the French king. So with him, two people are his close friend Parulis and also another lord Laugh. In Act 2 we see the countess allows Helena to go to court and try her hand at curing the king's illness. In the second act we see Helena gets the consent from the countess to go to the king of France because the king of France is suffering from fistula, an illness. The illness is never, mentioned in clear words, but we understand that it is something like fistula. So the countess allows Helena to go to the court of the king of France because we know the father figure of Helena was a physician. So Helena might have inherited some of his talents in curing illness. So she, shows confidence in her talent and she wishes to go to meet the king of France in order to cure him of his disease. Now Helena reaches the court of the king of France and she succeeds in curing his disease. And as a reward, the king asks her to choose a husband from among his wards. So king gives her the consent to marry anyone from his court. She can marry anyone. So she chooses Bertram. Bertram was there. We know Bertram and his two friends, they had gone to meet the king of France. So Bertram sees the alliance as beneath him. Bertram feels it is not good because Helena is far below him in social status. So he considers her not a proper, not a good match for him. But we know the king had already given her the consent to marry a man of her choosing from his court. So what happens? The marriage happens. So Bertram had no way to escape from the orders of the king. So he marries her, but he chooses to leave her somehow. After the marriage ceremony, he runs away and plans to join the wars in Italy with the Parulis. So what happens? He was really looking for a way to escape from her. So immediately after the marriage, without even, giving his first kiss to his wife after the marriage. It was a ceremony, but without even doing it, he chooses to leave the palace under the pretext that there is a war going on in Italy, so he should join as early as possible. So under this pretext, he leaves the palace with his friend Parulis. In Act 3, what happens? Bertram, who is now in Italy, he writes a letter to Helena, who is in France. So from Italy, he writes a letter to Helena that he will not acknowledge the marriage until she can prove she wears his heirloom ring and carries his child. So Bertram now puts forward two conditions before her. First of all, she should, get his heirloom ring, the ring he wears in his hand, that Helena should get. Now he is in Italy and the ring is in his hand. So if Helena, cunningly acquires, cunningly somehow gets that ring, and also without his own knowledge, she should be pregnant with his child. So these are the two conditions. She should possess his ring and also bear his child. Now we know that Helena is in the court of the King of France. So from there, she goes back to Roussillon. That means goes back to the house of the Countess, to the house of Bertram. But she does not give up. But she was not ready to give up. From the house of Roussillon, she decides to go in a search of Bertram, who is in Italy. So instead, she soon leaves and disguised as a pilgrim follows Bertram to Florence. So she goes to Florence, which is in Italy. So under the disguise of a pilgrim. So there she befriends an old widow of Florence, surnamed Capulet, and also the daughter of Capulet called Diana. So she goes to Italy, that is in Florence, and there she meets two people, two women. First, a widow surnamed Capulet, and the widow's daughter Diana. Now we know that the hero and the heroine are in Italy. So after coming to Italy, Bertram had fallen in love with the widow's daughter Diana. And Helena understands this because Helena is there under the pretext of a pilgrim. So Helena understands everything that Bertram is in love with Diana. So meanwhile, Bertram has formed an obsession with Diana during his time in Italy. So Bertram wants to sleep with Diana. Actually, he was, doing this with so many other virgins as well. There is a subplot also. That is about Parulis. We know that with Bertram, his friend Parulis also had come to Italy. So what happens? Bertram actually trusts the person Parulis a lot because Bertram considers Parulis as his best friend. But Parulis was actually not a sincere person. He was an insincere person and also a coward he was. He was a coward. So the other soldiers try to prove that Parulis is an insincere person and he is also a coward. So that is the subplot of the play. So in the subplot, what we see, the soldiers jokingly trick Parolles into proving that he's a coward. So this subplot happens along with the main story. So the main story progresses with the Bertram's attractions towards Diana, and he wants to get her to his bed. So meanwhile, Bertram makes intention to sleep with Diana. In Act 4, Diana plots to help Helena fulfill Bertram's impossible request for marriage. So now Diana and Helena are friends. So Diana agrees to help Helena somehow to get her husband. So the two conditions, in order to fulfill the two conditions, Diana offers to help Helena. So Diana insists the meeting with Bertram must be in the dark, and a disguised Helena takes Diana's place. So Diana agrees to meet Bertram because Bertram had been requesting her to arrange a secret tryst with Diana. So Diana finally agrees to Bertram that yes, she is ready, but it should be in the dark. So as per their plan, Diana sends Helena instead of herself. Diana sends Helena to meet Bertram. Thus, Helena sleeps with her husband, Bertram. During the night, Bertram gives Helena his ring, thinking that she's Diana, and they conceive a child. So, during the time of tryst, during the time of their sex, they exchange rings. So Bertram gives his ring to Helena, thinking that it is actually Diana, and Helena also gives her ring to Bertram, and they had sex, and thus Helena became pregnant. Now the two conditions are met. Now, after her conditions are met, she, in the Act 5, we see Helena going back to France. So from Italy, she goes back to France. And Helena is presumed dead in Roussillon due to her absence. So what she does, she pretends her own death. After coming back to France, she, spreads news there. Helena is dead. So Bertram, after hearing the news of her death, he was really happy. So Bertram returns to France, thinking that Helena is no more. So he is now free. So Bertram returned to France, where his mother and Lafou have arranged for Bertram to marry Lafou's daughter. Now Bertram comes back to France, to the countess, to his mother. So where his mother and Lafou have arranged for Bertram to marry Lafou's daughter. Now they think that Helena is dead, so mother gives him consent to marry Lafou's daughter. Bertram gives Lafou a betrothal token, a ring that he had been given on his midnight meeting with Helena in Florence. So as per their custom, a ring exchange should happen. So Bertram, gives the ring that he got from Helena. So he gives this ring to Lafou. But the king and others recognize the ring to be one that the king had given to Helena on her marriage. So this was the ring the king had given to Helena on her marriage. That ring Helena then gave to Bertram when they met in the dark. So before the situation can be resolved, Diana arrives at court with Bertram's ring and accuses him of seducing and then deserting her. Now Diana comes to the scene in order to prove that Bertram is actually a cheat. Bertram is a fraud. Bertram denies her. Now what happens? Bertram pretends that he doesn't know her. But Lafo withdraws his offer of his daughter, suspecting falsehood. But Lafo, he doesn't believe Bertram, and he says that he is not ready to give his daughter to Bertram in marriage. Now the king gets angry. He orders Diana away to prison. But now the king is angry. He orders imprisonment to Diana. But he stops when the widow brings in Helena to be a witness to Diana's story. So now the widow, mother of Diana, and Helena come to the scene. And they say that what Diana says is right. So it is Bertram who is a cheat. Now the king and her friends recognize the pregnant Helena and welcome her. Now the king understands that it is Helena, and Helena's friends also recognize her. Now Diana acknowledges that the ring given to her by Bertram came from Helena. So now Diana says that the ring that she possesses, that she provides as a proof, actually has come from Helena. So we know that day when Helena and Bertram met in the dark, they had exchanged the rings. That ring Helena got from Bertram. She then gave it to Diana. So Diana then comes to the court with the ring, telling that Bertram had cheated her. They also recognize that Helena is wearing Bertram's ring and carrying his child. So now they understand that Helena has, acquired Bertram's ring and she is pregnant with Bertram's child. Now she met both of his qualifications for accepting the marriage. So Bertram asks for pardon and accepts his wife. So Bertram has no other way in order to escape from the wrath of the king. So he admits his mistake. The king allows Diana in a recompense for her troubles to choose a husband among his courtiers and promises her a dowry. So now the king was happy with Diana and her good-heartedness. So he lets her choose a husband from his court and he gives her a dowry, offers her a dowry. So there ends the play. Now let's analyze the main characters. Once more, you remember, we have the characters: King of France, then the hero Bertram, who is the Count of Rusilla. Then we have Countess of Rusilla, who is the mother of Bertram. Then remember, we have another character, Lavache. Lavache is a clown in Bertram's household, the Countess' household. So remember, there is a clown, the clown character from the play. All's well that ends well is Lavache. Then we have the heroine Helena, a gentlewoman protected by the Countess, that means Bertram's mother. Then we have Lafo, who is a lord, an old lord. Then we have Parulus, a follower or friend of Bertram. Then we have, in Italy, we have an old woman of Florence, surnamed Capulet. Then we have Capulet's daughter, Diana. Then we have another character, a ghost character, Violenta. So Violenta, remember the ghost character from All's Well There Ends Well is Violenta. Then we have another character, Mariana. Mariana is the neighbor and friend of the widow Capulet. Remember, Mariana is the friend and neighbor of widow Capulet. That means mother of Diana. Remember, the ghost character from All's Well There Ends Well is Violenta. Violenta is actually a neighbor and a friend of the widow Capulet. Then we have to remember another character, the clown from All's Well There Ends Well. The clown name is Labache. Labache is a clown in a Bertram's house, or we can say from the house of the Countess, the Countess of Roussillon. So that's all for today. In the next class, we will discuss the biography of Philip Sidney.